is a way for us when we're not sure, when we reach a crossroads, when we get to the point where it's a 50-50, it's a split decision of whether or not I should embark on this journey, I should buy this house, I should marry this person or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've given you a way to tip the balance. How? You look in my book. You open the Quran. So, going back on what we were discussing before, the Arabs, the pagans, had an old version of the istikhara. They called it tatayyur. Tatayyur was a way to find out what was going to happen. The hadith says, at-tayyara haythu wada'taha. Whatever your intention is, if you expect good results out of this action that you're about to take, then you will get good results. If you are pessimistic, if you're afraid that something wrong is going to happen, then something wrong will happen. Another tradition by Ahlul Bayt to confirm this physical law that we're referring to. The Imam says, and this is a common question that I get all the time. The Imam says, a dream, it becomes real. In other words, the true interpretation of a dream is based on who you tell the dream to. Which is why we have other traditions that state, don't tell your dream to just about anybody. Don't come up to every Tom, Dick, and Harry and tell them the details of a dream that you saw last night, which to you must be important, otherwise you wouldn't be telling people about it. Because the interpretation you receive from that person will be reflected in how this dream actualizes, and how it becomes reality. And perhaps, this is just my own theory, perhaps the reason for that is because when you tell somebody a dream, and they tell you, well, that means that you're going to make a big loss in the stock market, then your mindset, your system of thinking will be focused around what you just heard, that you're going to make a big loss in the stock market. And it'll become something that you think about over and over again, which in turn is translated into reality. So this is something that we know is true, based on our traditions, based on practice, based on our everyday lives. Your attitude, your mentality reflects on physical reality, though we can't prove it. Then again, there are so many other things that are confirmed, at least to the people who hold those theories, but they can't be proven. In fact, I saw a book called Things We Believe In But Can't Prove. And this book is a compilation of articles and papers from some of the most brilliant minds in academia today. You know, we're talking about professors and deans of universities and doctors and whatnot, who propose very bizarre theories that they believe in. They truly believe in those theories to be true, but they can't prove them. For example, I remember reading one of those papers, and the author was a professor of neurology, in other words, a brain surgeon, very smart person by any measure. And his theory was that nothing exists in physical reality except for our sense. Our senses, our perception, that is the only thing that exists. And the world around us, which is basically another way of proposing the holographic universe theory, which states that nothing really exists. And everything you think you perceive, everything you think you see, every voice you think you hear is something that exists in your mind and your mind alone. And it doesn't exist in reality, which of course is a very false notion. We don't believe that. The point is, there are things that people believe in, though they can't prove them. It doesn't mean that they're not true. It simply means either they're not true, that's one possibility, or that the tools and the apparatus they have are limited in scope and in their ability to prove them. One of the theories, one of the laws that we know for a fact is true, we know for a fact is real, though it may be a little difficult to prove, is this. Traditions tell us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take a small, seemingly insignificant act of a good deed, something good in nature, which is performed at the bottom of a cave in the middle of a desert. And that act, that small act, which took place in a desolate land, there were no witnesses, there were no bystanders, there was nothing to confirm that that act actually took place. Allah will take it because it was good, and He will amplify it. He will make sure that everyone knows about it, because it was performed with the sincerest intentions. 3 words: baby, hungry, crying. All the sisters, mothers, are very familiar with these 3 words. How many babies get hungry and then cry on a daily basis? Hundreds of millions of babies. I mean, it's one thing that occupies all mothers all the time. Not so much the fathers. I mean, recently my wife gave birth to a child, and I know deep down that I don't receive 1/10, or actually, let me be honest about it, 1/100th of the amount of pain and suffering that my wife has to go through with this baby needing all these different things 24/7, crying all the time, not knowing what the baby needs in order for you to provide the need of that baby. And all you get is crying and crying and crying all the time. How many babies cry on a daily basis? God knows how many. But then, there are those occasions, those instances, when a baby gets hungry and cries, and this little event transforms the world. How? Well, thousands of years later, a little baby got hungry, then cried. His mom, out of desperation, not knowing what to do, she was in the middle of the desert. Her husband wasn't around. There were no tribes moving around the area. There was no source of nourishment or food or water for the baby. She had nothing else to do but to get up and to run from one point to another, back and forth 7 times. Today, the Saudi government spends $100 billion making sure that this little event that took place thousands of years ago when there was no one else watching is turned into a monument. $100 billion, or so they claim. I don't know whether that amount was actually spent in the project. There could have been all sorts of games being played, but that's not the point. The point is $100 billion, and they build an area between the little Mount Safa and Mount Marwa. Hundreds of thousands and millions of people go through the same ritual all year round, doing what Hajar did for her little son Ismail. And it's a big problem to this very day. After $100 billion being spent on the project, to this day, there are issues that the Saudi government has to deal with on an annual basis. Every single year, they find out that the area is just too small. So they build another floor, and then another one, and then another one. And now they've recently expanded it, created literally an area that's almost twice the size as the original Mas'ah. 4-story, massive structure, marble floors and ceilings and walls, because a baby got hungry and cried. Why? This is one of those universal laws. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you